That's right. So let me quickly do that while my video, I'm just gonna quickly do this recording. We didn't do our Saturday lovely. AWOKH, say hi to our other AWOKH photo, everyone. So what are we? There's a communication that I've learned now, and I've learned that communication has really caused a house that I know was a very calm house that today is a Sabine in South Africa. And I have to reprimand Tokyo, Japan for that, right? My sister Antoinette also sits very quiet in England in the office. And in the office, the motor vehicle communication speaks into your universe communication ears. And they had a mother, and the people that I'm talking about had a mother many years in Chicago, right? And the mother was always sitting quiet, and I always used to sit next to the mother, and the house was quiet, and then the children went their ways, and everyone was now learning different things by everyone now today plays the game about the mother so quiet, right? And a lot of things that's being spoken into the mother's universe communications through the motor vehicle communications. And that's where Christopher Luxon and Rostan Kamali comes in, and that's where my loud videos of last week comes in, right? So for Tokyo, Japan, and for America, do not play those games in our houses. I know my sister Antoinette and Leon have worked very hard over the years, but I really cannot allow those games of communications that you're talking to people's universe communications, and that parenting actually goes to the children's communications. And while the mother was sitting many years very quiet, the mother was deceased when my mother was deceased, right, at 6 years old. And when we got to the hospital, then the mother had a hospital bed next to my mother. And then I looked and I said, wow, when I was a little girl, it was important to reach Chicago, right? And then we have moved, go to a different community. And when we got to the hospital when my mother was deceased many years ago, in 2010, right? 2010 to early 2011, then I've learned that the game that they play around the motor vehicle communication, that's now where Urban Kamali traveled to New Zealand also. So for New Zealand, that have made me so loud. And while the mother was a very plus size woman, the mother was sitting on a chair the whole day. And I always used to sit next to the mother, and I always used to listen to learn what is the mother listening to. And I learned about all of these communications. Few years after that, I got back to Chicago, and the house is today a Sabine, and the children is today in Kingston. And the Bible writes about it, the book of Daniel, right? And the Bible says a lot of things, right? And the one of the people were really sometimes questioned for what they were doing. And there's a lot that has happened in the household, and we don't know what everyone finds themselves guilty of, right? And after all of those communications, I've really now sitting ahead. Now you can sometimes laugh about those communications, right? And I was now really sitting and listening to what happened. And after the mother was sitting quietly, and the communication was spoken into the mother's ears, right? And while the mother had to listen to it, the mother was now not the person that was now oppressed with all of those things that the communication gave instructions about, right? America writes the film, and America says the instructions that some people get. While the mother was sitting quietly, the instructions went to the children's universe communications that are also birthed in the womb of the mother, like the 10 fingers, right? And while I was now saying it, by the time the communication was finished, then one of the sons was now, I don't know if he was accused of murdering. His name was Daniel, and the story was so, and we don't know what happened that night, right? And my mother was very angry with him because it was a family member of us that was not there anymore. And everyone knows the story in South Africa. And now some the story came to me, and the saying came to me, and after the mother was sitting and quiet, by the time that the mother was now getting up, then Daniel was a murderer, the oldest daughter was now a mafia, and the son is now a gangster. And that was not really the house that the children were brought up in. The children were brought up in the most quietest house. And while technology in India, no, not India, Tokyo, Japan, vehicle communication, and Rostam Kamali that went to Bontebok Street, Chicago, to go and find out a lot of things about stuff, and maybe not. But while the mother was listening to Christopher Luxon, Tokyo, Japan, in her ears, sitting quietly, the communication didn't affect her because she was now quiet. But then by the time that the mother looked around, then Daniel was a murderer. The Bible writes about the book of Daniel when Daniel was in the fire. And when baby Tanika, my first birth baby, burned in probably the same communication. And by the time that Christopher Luxon, Tokyo, Japan, Urban Kamali, New Zealand, that is also from Paul Community, our road. And by the time that Osis got up, then Daniel was now a murderer, and one of the sisters, Anna, was now really a mafia, and Leon was the youngest boy, was now really a gangster. And that's now you can have a really fine saying about it, but it's all the things that they said through Osis's universe communications. And Osis was sitting quiet, so it didn't even affect Osis, but it is communications that sometimes, humanity can sometimes manage in a way that are fine for households because the children was never oppressive children to the communities. And that is all. And that's for Tokyo, Japan, and for Christopher Luxon, and for Irvin Kamali, Rosalind Kamali, that was manager of McDonald's Power. All of those communications, Tokyo, Japan, do not hinder the communications of the international world. We know they are managing a lot of processes around us, but processes should be in a fine way for everyone in the international world. And this video is also for Christopher Luxon, parliamentary leader of New Zealand. And while my sister is also sitting still in England, not listening, and while children is in university, then no one talks into a universe communications with a lot of instructions to the children, because the children can hear everything that people talk into our universe communications. Also for my Reiki, because I was now almost wanting to sit still in the house, then I learned my mama was a person that was very up and active, because my mama was now really not going to sit and listen to all of those communications. And that is it. Oh, my Hannah Fontaine also was sitting very quietly over the years, and by the time